September 2nd, 1666, the flames spread fast from Pudding Lane, leaping from shop to shop, devouring the wooden city. In our world, fire engines failed, water buckets tipped too late, and London burned for 4 long days. But in this alternate timeline, the fire is stopped early. Perhaps a stronger wind blows it back into the Thames, perhaps the fire breaks actually work. The blaze consumes a few streets but dies before sunrise. The Great Fire of London never happens. At first, the people cheer, their homes are saved, their markets intact, their churches still standing. The medieval maze of timber houses, crooked alleys, and overhang roofs survives untouched. Londoners go back to business quickly, proud that disaster was averted, but hidden in the smoke is a darker fate. Because while the fire destroyed 80% of the city in our world, it also cleared out centuries of rot. It burned away the cramped, unsanitary neighborhoods where plague thrived. In 1665, the Great Plague had killed nearly 100,000 Londoners, almost a quarter of the city. The fire, cruel though it was, ensured the plague did not return. Without it, pestilence lingers, zoom into lives. A young carpenter whose house survived the near fire celebrates with ale in a tavern. But months later, his wife falls to fever, her body carried in a cart through streets too narrow for air to circulate. A baker's apprentice, spared from losing his livelihood, finds himself instead burying half his family the following year. A wealthy merchant, who in our timeline rebuilt his house in brick, here clings to his old timber mansion, unaware that it will one day harbor rats and fleas. London stays medieval. The wooden buildings remain, packed tight, leaning across alleys. The city never gets its grand redesign with wide boulevards and brick houses. Sir Christopher Wren never builds his magnificent new St. Paul's Cathedral. Instead, the old Gothic church lingers, patched but decaying. Foreign visitors arriving at the Thames do not see a rising Baroque capital, they see a city of smoke, timber, and disease. Economically, the effects are severe. The rebuilding after the Great Fire in our world stimulated trade, construction, and innovation. Brickmaking boomed, architecture flourished, and London became a city of stone. Without the fire, that surge never happens. England's capital lags behind Paris and Amsterdam, its skyline still medieval. As late as 1700, wealthy nobles build palaces in the countryside rather than risk disease in the crowded city. London's role as a global hub weakens. Globally, the consequences ripple outward. England in the late 17th century was rising as a naval power, building the empire that would one day circle the world. London was its beating heart. But in this alternate world, London remains disease-ridden and unattractive to merchants. Trade shifts to other ports, Bristol, Liverpool, even Dublin. The empire grows, but more slowly, its base of power scattered. The East India Company hesitates to call London its home. Amsterdam and Paris remain the centers of finance, zoom again to daily lives. A dock worker in London in 1680, instead of carrying goods for a booming city, finds fewer ships docking, wages lower. A physician, rather than pioneering new theories in clean rebuilt hospitals, still bleeds patients in cramped timber houses where contagion spreads. A French ambassador writes home, describing London as filthy and backward compared to Versailles. A poor child in the alleys of Southwark grows up playing beside sewage, rats darting through the same streets that should have been cleared decades earlier. Politically, the timeline bends. The restored monarchy of Charles II was already fragile. In our world, the fire gave him a chance to appear as a restorer, guiding reconstruction, symbolizing renewal. Without that, his reputation suffers. Conspiracy theories about the plague and the near fire spread. Rumors swirl that Catholics or foreigners are poisoning wells. Anti-Catholic hysteria grows sharper. The later glorious revolution of 1688 might come earlier, with Londoners rising in anger at monarchy's failure to protect them from disease. By the 18th century, London's weakness becomes glaring. In our world, it became Europe's largest city, a hub of Enlightenment thought, trade, and finance. But in this alternate timeline, Paris and Amsterdam take the lead. London, still medieval, cannot compete. Britain's intellectual blossoming is delayed. Coffee houses where writers and scientists debated ideas become plague-haunted taverns instead. Newton, Locke, and Hobbes may still write, but their audiences are smaller, their impact weaker. The Enlightenment is slower, dimmer, zoom once more to personal fates. A young Isaac Newton, traveling to London, finds himself appalled by its stench, retreating to Cambridge. A merchant's daughter, who in our world might have hosted salons for poets and scientists, dies in an epidemic that never should have survived the fire. A poor printer, instead of thriving on pamphlet sales in a rebuilt city, goes bankrupt as plague keeps customers away. Colonialism shifts too. In our world, London became the hub for goods from India, Africa, and the Americas. Here, the capital is less secure. Bristol rises faster, dominating the slave trade and colonial commerce. Liverpool, too, grows earlier, but without London's banking and political dominance, the empire becomes fragmented, led by multiple competing ports. By the 18th century, Britain's global empire is weaker, less coordinated, less feared. Would America still rebel? Perhaps. But without London as the imperial center, the colonies might negotiate with Bristol merchants or Liverpool slavers rather than Parliament. The revolution could take a different shape, less about resisting a powerful central government, more about dealing with a divided, inconsistent empire. The United States might emerge earlier or never unite at all. By the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution still stirs. Coal mines, steam engines, and factories spread across Britain. But London's filth holds back its growth. Instead of becoming a global financial hub, the city becomes notorious for its poverty and disease. Charles Dickens, writing about grimy London, has even darker material, a city where medieval streets never burned away, where plague carts rolled into the 1800s, where reform lagged centuries behind. Zoom one last time to individual lives. A factory worker in 1820, coughing in smog, also fears plague outbreaks that should have ended long ago. A banker, instead of thriving in London's city, moves operations to Amsterdam, making Dutch finance supreme. A visiting American, touring Europe, writes letters home describing London as a relic of the Middle Ages, unfit for modern trade. Would this world be better for individuals spared the flames of 1666, yes, fewer immediate losses, less sudden homelessness? But for future generations, worse. Without the cleansing fire, disease persists, architecture stagnates, economy weakens. The Great Fire was a tragedy, but also a brutal reset that forced London into modernity. Without it, Britain's rise is slower, its empire weaker, its enlightenment dimmer. So, what do you think? Was the Great Fire of London a disaster or, in the long run, a blessing? Drop your thoughts below and subscribe to Sheriff Reactions. Hit the bell for daily flips, where we explore not just what happened, but what might have been.